Hello and welcome to our wellbeing series, Coping Well During COVID. I'm so excited that we're able to offer this session to you, and I really hope that you go away today with a useful technique or strategy that will help you when you're working from home. My name is Emily Gardner and I'm a cognitive behavioural therapist working for the NHS in London. I've been trained to deliver specialised therapy for adults with anxiety and depression. For today's wellbeing session, we're going to be looking at working from home and staying well. This series of sessions is designed to give you a toolkit of resources, tools, ideas, and all of the resources and ideas that we're using in these series is evidence-based, which basically means that it's been researched heavily and been found to be effective for improving the way that you feel. So we really hope this toolkit will be of use to you over the next few days, weeks, and months. The content of each session is based on cognitive behavioural therapy, which is a very effective treatment for anxiety and depression. And it focuses on making changes to our behaviour as well as our thought processes. Today, we're going to be considering the challenges created by working from home and helping you to find a better working from home life balance, enabling you to find it easier to separate work life from home life. And I really want you to go away with some strategies to help you switch off from work and enjoy your time outside of work as well. So, what do you hope to get out of the session today? I want you to think about that and consider what you would like to get from our session. So in our previous webinar series, we asked this question and we got some interesting responses, and I wanted to share some of them with you today. And these might be similar to some of your hopes and desires for the session today. So someone said that they would like help with keeping their home life balance in check. Someone else said that they wanted to find out how to balance working from home and their personal life. Someone else mentioned that they'd like to cope with continuing to work from home during this corona situation. Someone else would like to learn to leave work behind at the end of the day. Or perhaps to learn some tips to cope with that new norm caused by COVID. Or how to support someone who is becoming overwhelmed by work and is working from home, so not being able to shut off, working very long hours. This might sound familiar and might be some of the hopes that you would like to get from today's webinar, and we're going to be covering on a number of these things today. So let's have a think about some of the difficulties that you're having when working from home. So think about the challenges that you're having day to day as a result of home working. In previous webinar episodes, we've asked this question, and the responses that we have might be familiar to you. Low motivation and energy levels, balancing working from home and working, staying physically active, isolation, virtual working with clients. Maybe it's overworking or difficulty switching off. Someone said trying to manage childcare whilst working from home and being present but not really being present. Mentally really stressful, no alone time, as well as missing face-to-face human interaction. And someone else said the loss of routine, feeling pressure to do my work, but also doing household chores that are staring me in the face. And so there are a number of difficulties and challenges with working from home. And so naturally, this is going to impact the way that you feel. And you may find that you feel more and more overwhelmed as a result. It has been a bit of a roller coaster ride that we've been on since this all started. And things do feel uncertain and unpredictable. And we may find ourselves worrying more and feeling more and more stressed. So it's important to recognise that whilst these changes have been absolutely necessary for our physical health, they do have an unfortunate impact on our mental health. Some of you may be really struggling right now and feel like you have nowhere to turn If this is the case, then we really want you to know where you can go if you need it. So if you're having thoughts of suicide or of harming yourself in any way, we really encourage you to seek help. Don't struggle alone. If you feel like you need to, the Samaritans are here to listen at any time of day or night, and they'll be able to offer you confidential support. You can call them on 116 123. You will find more information for further support at the end of the session today. So I'd like to consider with you some of the challenges of working from home in a bit more detail. One of the main challenges will be managing your own time. Working remotely requires you to be self-motivated as well as being experts at managing your own time, because there isn't anyone watching or monitoring you. And whilst it is always difficult to stick to a schedule and manage your to-do list, it's especially challenging for remote workers who have more flexible, free-form days. It can also be really difficult to switch off from work. It's hard to see when work ends and your leisure time begins, and it can all start to merge together. You may find that you're working too much. It's interesting because one of the reasons many managers don't actually approve of remote working is because they assume that people will slack off when they're not being monitored in physical person. But in fact, the opposite happens. And in reality, remote workers are more likely to overwork. And when your personal life and work life are both under the same roof, it's really hard to switch off. Another challenge that you may find from working from home is that you have more frequent interruptions. On the plus side, when you work from home, you're less likely to have interruptions from co-workers coming by and saying it's someone's birthday and come have some cake in the break room. But the bad news is you'll likely have to deal with other kinds of interruptions, whether it's the delivery person needing your signature or your in-laws dropping by unannounced. It's especially hard if you have young children who don't actually understand when they can see you, but you're not available to play with them. So repeatedly saying, I don't have time right now, it's painful and can be challenging. Another challenge might be loneliness and that lack of human interaction, especially if you don't have family members home with you when you're working. You might have that opposite problem, is isolation. Even with internet access and tools available, you may find yourself developing that cabin fever where you're in that same place for too long. It's easy to get into the habit of working from home all day and not getting out of the house. And that can be a huge challenge. Another challenge might be that you find it difficult to collaborate. In the office, it can be really easy to ask colleagues for information or updates. It might just mean a short walk down the corridor or turning to someone next to you. However, when you're not in the same room, you don't have this same benefit, and it can be a lot more challenging to ask someone for advice or turn to someone for support. Another difficulty is not being able to socially interact. And interacting with other people is often a really positive aspect of many jobs. Yes, you're there to work, but social connection is a really big plus and can help with productivity. Another challenge that I'm guilty of myself is when working at home, it's much easier to slip into bad habits. For one thing, there's the fridge, literally a few steps away. Or perhaps the opposite problem, without common lunch breaks, you may forget to eat. Exercise may have fallen by the wayside because you're overworking. Or you may forget to go outside as there's no reason to draw you out there. And all of these challenges, whether you've had all of them or a couple, will be impacting on the way that you feel. Naturally, what we've been going through and this long list of challenges that I've just talked through is going to be impacting on the way that we feel. And it can be really helpful to break it down so that we understand it a bit more. And we can use a 5 areas model to help us do this. So As you can see, there are 5 areas, and the first is that life events box. And we have working remotely, constant interruptions, lack of human interaction, frequent technical disruptions as examples of those challenging life events that you may have been experiencing within the last few months. And those challenges will naturally impact on our thoughts. You may be having thoughts like, I can't face it right now. I don't have time right now. I can't take a break. Colleagues will think I'm slacking. And those thoughts might be having an impact on you physically. So you might feel more tired, you might have sleeping difficulties, you might have a lack of energy. You may even notice low motivation. You may find you've got more tension or aches and pains. Naturally, this will impact what we do and how we respond. And so you may find that you're snacking more, working too much, not going out of the house, avoiding interaction and procrastinating. And these areas will also impact on our emotions. So we're going to be finding that we're more bored, overwhelmed, lonely, stressed, down, low in mood. And it becomes a bit of a vicious cycle in that all of these areas start to interact with each other, and it can escalate, and it can get to a point where we're really struggling and feeling overwhelmed. So we've talked about the challenges of working from home, but it's important that we don't forget that there are benefits. So what are those benefits to you? What do you benefit from working from home? So I've asked this question before in a previous webinar series, and the answers might feel familiar to you. You might be glad that you can wake up later, being able to exercise without a 5 a.m. start, no commute, which normally takes a lot of time, seeing your partner more, escaping the long commute, no more tube, saving cost on travel. You can get stuff easily delivered, better, healthier lunches. Another one, making lunch in a clean kitchen rather than the shared office kitchen. Definitely a plus. Get to eat meals with your kids. And my favourite one, no restrictive bra. That's brilliant. So we've looked at the challenges and the benefits that we're experiencing working from home. Survey findings captured during the first 2 weeks of lockdown have been analysed to give us an idea and picture of the impact that working from home is having on people in the UK. And within those first 2 weeks of lockdown, there was a significant increase in musculoskeletal complaints. So more than half of the survey respondents reported new aches and pains. And also they reported a significant impact on their diet and exercise. They've increased alcohol consumption, and they were eating a less healthy diet and exercising less. So I really wanted you to go away today with some expert advice on how to set up your home office. When we went into lockdown, we didn't anticipate how long we would be working from home. So we may not have properly considered how to set up our home office. The Health and Safety Executive have some really useful guidance on workstation setup. And here is a very useful video for you. So when you get a bit of time later on, have a look at this and consider if your workstation is working for you. Their main tips from the Health and Safety Executive are to break up long spells of display screen equipment. Work with rest breaks, at least 5 minutes every hour. Or change up your activity. Avoid awkward, static posture by regularly changing your position. Have a little dance if you can. Get up, get moving, do some stretching exercises. Avoid eye fatigue by changing your focus or blinking from time to time as well. Try to have your workplace in a different room than your bedroom. If that is not possible because you're house sharing, then we really suggest that you don't work from your bed, but sit away from your bed and set up a small office place for work only. Research has found that working in your room or on your bed can have a negative effect on that sleep association, and that can increase your poor sleep quality. So, some more tips for you. Stick to a routine as much as possible, including getting out of bed, brushing your teeth, and getting dressed. Make sure you are meeting your basic needs. To continue to function at your best, you need to get enough rest and respite, and this means taking regular breaks, making sure you nourish your body at regular times throughout the day. Eat regular healthy meals. Don't rely on caffeine and sugar to get you through. Whilst it does give you a rush of energy, it wears off quickly. Plan time away from your desk, whether that is in another room or out of your house or flat. Stick to your working hours, and please avoid that tendency to do more or let work spill over into your home life. It's equally important to be aware of that tendency to procrastinate or get distracted by non-work related activities such as housework or house admin, or perhaps the television. When you are planning your routine, you need to take into account both the challenges and the benefits of working from home. And it is okay to be flexible and make the most of working from home, as long as you get the right balance between fitting in all of your work hours and making sure you get your jobs done around those extra activities. Sometimes when we are thinking about adding in extra activities in our working day, we might feel guilty about this and feel like we are unable to do anything other than work within that working day. However, we need to take breaks. We need to look after ourselves. And actually doing these things can make us more efficient and more productive. We can look at this a bit like we might look at sharpening a saw. By taking time out to sharpen the saw, we stop the saw from becoming blunt. And with us, we will become less likely to feel worn out and have less energy. When we are thinking about adding more things into our day and we're already feeling overwhelmed with the amount of work we're doing, we need to think creatively about how we include these extra activities that might help to sharpen our saw. Do something to replace your commute to signify the start and end of your working day. The benefit of this is that not only are you getting something enjoyable, but you're also signalling to you when your day starts and ends. Whether it's dancing in your kitchen, going for a walk around the block, mindfulness, some yoga, or even reading a book. Not only are you making the most of the time gained from not commuting, but you're also signalling the start and end of your working day. One of the challenges we talked about earlier on in the session is that it's really difficult not being able to speak with our colleagues face to face, and we can feel quite isolated without that social interaction. So it's really important that we find ways to check in with our work colleagues virtually through video meeting, calls, or emails. All formal meetings will have transferred digitally quite easily. However, those water cooler chats, those after work drinks, the lunchroom discussions do not transfer as well. When you have had a really difficult day, it can be harder to lean on your colleague or manager for support, as there's not only that physical distance, but it feels less natural than an ad hoc conversation over a coffee. It's easy to feel isolated from our colleagues, so we need to find ways to connect socially with our colleagues. If it's not already happening in your team, really think about how you can maybe champion that social connection and encourage members of your team to connect regularly. So ideas like a pub quiz or virtual after work drinks or virtual lunch breaks. And if you don't feel able to reach out to your wider team, maybe consider with some of your closer colleagues and start creating that opportunity to connect. We talked earlier about that challenge with switching off from work. So one thing that we recommend is to put the day to rest. Once you have finished working, Pack up your work materials and have a clean finish to the day. Turn off email notifications. It may be useful to have an alarm set to signal the end of your working day so that even if you're engrossed in a project, it reminds you to finish. Maybe plan an activity to take your attention away from work. Do something out of the house if possible, and then come back to your home after the activity and don't go back to your work. It can be easy to let your home life and work life merge. So be strict with yourself and stick to your routine working hours. When we're working from home, we may need to start thinking about how we can maintain a positive work-life balance as much as possible. So it's really helpful to start thinking about other activities that we can build into our lives outside of work. Most of us have a lot of different areas that make up our lives. Our hobbies, our friends, our family members. And the advantage of having a number of areas that support us is that we can use them as scaffolding. If we think about scaffolding on a house, particularly when a house is being repaired or built, it needs that scaffolding to support it so it doesn't collapse. We're a bit like that in that when things are challenging, we need scaffolding to support us. And when we think about our own scaffolding, we need to think about the areas of our lives that support us, such as our friends, our family members, our work life. So in this way, we can build a framework to help us cope better. And it can be useful to think about all of the areas in our lives and how much time we allocate to each area. It is particularly important when we're feeling overwhelmed with the demands of work that we make sure that this support is in place. Person A has two areas that make up their life, their work and their relationship. So when this person starts to experience difficulties at work, they would only have one area to support them, which means they will feel like a huge part of their life is in turmoil. When person B experiences difficulties at work, they will have a wider range of support available to them to help them cope, and it will feel like much less of their life is in turmoil. Okay, so sometimes we may struggle with managing our time, especially when we don't have anyone helping us to keep on track. And so improving our time management at work can be really beneficial, and we might need some strategies to help us do this. And if we spend a bit of time focusing on improving our time management, we will find that we'll be more productive and our performance will increase as well. The benefits of effective time management are endless. The positive effects of managing time efficiently will help you stay on top of your to-do list and get more done. So I have 10 time management tips for you. The first is to know your goals in life. Identifying your goals is a really good place to start. So use these goals as directions for you and help you to focus your time and energy. And you may be able to break those larger goals into smaller, achievable goals. Number 2, rank your priorities. It can be really helpful if you spend a bit of time looking at your to-do list and ranking them in order of what is important and what is less important. And I'll spend a bit more time talking about ranking your priorities in a few moments with a later technique. Take some time to plan and write down. There is a misconception that planning adds time on to your jobs, and it can feel that way. But actually, if you spend a bit of time planning, you're more likely to achieve the things that you actually want to do, and in a way that is more effective, rather than wasting time going around in circles. Another tip is to identify your prime time. So think ahead and think about when you work most effectively and do those challenging tasks at that time when you're more effective, and save those easier tasks for time when you are more likely to be tired. Number 5, keep a balance. Remember your scaffolding and make sure you have a balance of activities during your working day to support you to be more effective. Take breaks during the day. Take that time to relax and plan for future pleasurable activities. Number 6, leave slack time in your timetable. Now, this is really important because things don't always go to plan. And it may be that you need that extra time when something else goes wrong or when something else appears that was unexpected. Number 7, work out a system. Muddle often makes unnecessary work, and so it can waste time. So if you have a system in place, and it may take time to get this system in place, but if you have a system, reorganize things, make your workstation functional rather than mess, because you'll be more effective that way. Practice saying no. And I know this is difficult, especially with your employers, because you don't want to feel like you look bad. But actually, sometimes we can feel overwhelmed as a result of saying yes to too many things. It is not always possible to say no. However, if we reduce some of the things we say yes to, and we say no more, we may feel that we have more time and more capacity to focus on those things. Number 9, the 5-minute rule. Sometimes just getting started on an activity can be a challenge. It can feel really overwhelming. So we recommend just telling yourself that you're going to do it for 5 minutes and giving yourself permission to stop after that 5 minutes if you're still struggling. This can help us just get over that hurdle of starting. And often once we're in the flow of an activity, it's easy to continue. And finally, we can spend a bit of time identifying perfectionism. Perfectionism involves putting pressure on ourselves to meet excessive high standards, which are often above and beyond what we're expected. So if we have identified perfectionism, it can be helpful to review our standards and be a bit more flexible so that we can be more productive, but without sacrificing the quality of our work. So I mentioned as part of the time management strategies that it can be helpful to learn to prioritize tasks. And so I've included here a strategy which can help you to identify what is important and unimportant in your working day. So Eisenhower's urgent and important principles help you to quickly identify activities that you should focus on, as well as the ones that you should ignore. So when you use this tool to help you prioritize your time, it helps you to deal with urgent issues at the same time as working towards important longer-term goals. So to use this tool, you start by listing all of your activities and put each one down into the following 4 categories. So start with important and urgent, important but not urgent, not important but urgent, not important and not urgent. So those are our 4 categories. And then schedule the tasks and activities based on their importance and urgency. This will challenge the role of habitual activities, and it will allow you to regain control of your environment and also those external demands from your colleagues or peers that aren't always helpful. By filtering out those busy activities and focus on those essential, important tasks, it allows you to meet your goals and frees up time for things that actually matter. Okay, so let's have a look at some examples of what to put in each of these boxes. So if we have a look at the important but not urgent, this is the planning stage. So this may involve longer term planning or risk analysis or education and training, or maybe proactive maintenance. So those are just some examples of the things that you might include in the important but not urgent category. The next category, urgent and important, is our crises. So firefighting and pressing problems that need to be dealt with right away. Deadlines or equipment breakdowns. So these are things that need to be dealt with without delay. The third quadrant, not urgent and not important, are simply distractions. So these are excessive or irrelevant email, personal phone calls, social media usage, anything that causes you to procrastinate in any way. And the fourth quadrant, are urgent but not important, are those interruptions. So regular meetings and reports, phone calls and text messages. Most emails tend to be interruptions, and requests from others that don't necessarily contribute directly to your own objectives. So the first thing to do with this strategy is to put things on a to-do list to free up your mind. Then try limiting yourself to no more than 8 tasks per quadrant. Before adding another one, make sure you complete the most important one first. And remember, it's not about collecting, but finishing tasks. You should always maintain only one list for both business and private tasks. That way you'll never be able to complain about not having done anything for your family or yourself at the end of the day. Do not let others distract you. Don't let others define your priority. Plan in the morning and then work your way through your list. And then at the end of the day, enjoy that feeling of completion. Finally, try not to procrastinate too much or use this strategy as a way of procrastinating. It's meant to help you prioritize your tasks and put them in order. And hopefully this will free up more time for you, and you'll feel much more productive as a result. A bit more on procrastination. Procrastination means putting off something that we know we need to do, and most of us procrastinate to some extent. We have all said, I'll do it later, or I must get round to doing that. But some people habitually procrastinate to such an extent that tasks start to build up and it can start to feel extremely stressful. Procrastination is often a way that we avoid confronting our fears. It flourishes in 2 optimal conditions. First, when the task is not urgent. We do not have to do it right now, and there's time to do it in the future. And secondly, when there is something more pleasurable to do now. Procrastination is often about putting pleasure before pain. So why do we procrastinate? Well, there's a number of reasons. The first might be lacking a sense of mastery. So you may hold the attitude that successful people achieve their goals without frustration and self-doubt. Well, you'd be wrong. It is not about having to go through life without struggle. People who are successful expect that they will struggle and expect that they have to overcome tough challenges. So when they encounter an obstacle, they just carry on because they know what to expect. Sometimes people assume that they need to be in the mood. Procrastinators often think, I don't feel like it, I'll wait until I'm in the mood. But with some tasks that are boring and too demanding, you will never feel in the mood. Successful people will often put action before motivation. Once you get started, you begin to feel a sense of accomplishment and it spurs you to do more. You may have a fear of failure. So you may leave the task until the last minute and say, I didn't have enough time to do it properly. And by doing this, you give yourself an excuse, and that protects you from the reality that your best effort might not have been good enough. This may also link back to that perfectionism that we talked about earlier. You may also fear rejection or intimacy. So you may avoid making phone calls for fear of rejection. Alternatively, you may not feel comfortable allowing other people to get to know you. So you may put things off, you may not respond immediately, and keep yourself at emotional distance. And finally, fear of success. So if you do something really well, you might fear that it will draw attention to you and create more work for yourself or create high expectations for yourself. You might worry about being able to manage all of this extra responsibility or pressure. Whatever your reason for procrastinating, it can be really helpful to think about how useful it is to you and whether or not it helps you or hinders you. So the first thing to think about is how helpful it is. What is it doing to help you? And it has to help you in some way or you wouldn't do it. But it's also worthwhile thinking about how it hinders you. How does it hold you back? What are the drawbacks? And then once you've weighed up the benefits and the costs of procrastination, it can be helpful to decide whether or not it's useful to keep procrastinating. And so if you change and no longer procrastinate, what will be good about that for you? But also, what will be bad? What will you lose if you stop procrastinating? And hopefully this will give you a bit of an idea of what will happen if you do reduce the amount you procrastinate. It will give you an idea of what you will gain and what you will lose. And hopefully you'll see that it will be worthwhile working on this a little bit. So how do we put this into action? What do we do about this when we decide that actually we do want to work on procrastination? Well, the first thing might be identifying the problem. So going back to those reasons for procrastination. So for example, it may be that changing your procrastination habit will mean people might expect more from you. There'll be more pressure and responsibility, and that fear might be stopping you from working on this. So if you are faced with this problem, and this might be an obstacle that stops you from working on procrastination. So if this is the case, you can think about some self-talk that can help you to encourage yourself to overcome this obstacle. So for example, by telling yourself, well, I can choose what things I want to commit to and what things I don't want to commit to. And also I can build up gradually and do more and more things as I go. People aren't going to change their expectations of me overnight. And finally, how am I going to put this all into action? Well, remind yourself to keep going with doing rather than the putting off. And if someone puts pressure on you to commit to something that you're not ready for, talk to them about it. So that's just an example of how you might put it into action. But spend a bit of time thinking about this, and it will help you to start to overcome this challenge of procrastination. Finally, this may be the part that you've been waiting for, is working from home with children. And I've had to think about this myself, as I have 2 young children at home and I have been working throughout lockdown myself. So thinking about what we can do to support us whilst we work from home, whilst looking after children. So first of all, think about what digital support is available. What can you use to help your child with their learning digitally wise? So see if your school has online resources, and most will have online support in place. But mainly it's creating a timetable for your children. They are used to routine and structure. Their whole school day is structured, and so create a routine that is similar to the one that they would follow if they were in school. Remembering to take breaks. They need breaks more than we do. So make sure there's regular breaks where they can relax and rest and rejuvenate. Make sure you get out every day. Go for a short walk in the garden if you can. Open the window for some fresh air. Make sure you change rooms. Don't stay in the same place all day. Use some relaxation exercises together. These things will help your child improve concentration and focus. Use further resources to aid learning, such as books, podcasts, games, puzzles, audio resources, and BBC Bite Size. There are so many fantastic resources available online, and lots of people are offering them for free at the moment. So make the most of them. You don't have to do it all on your own. And when you are looking after your children, be present. Keep work and parental responsibilities as separate as possible. And I know that's hard. I found it hard myself when you feel torn between being a good employee and a good parent. And it can feel like you can't do both. And there will be times when you can't do both. So it's being kind to yourself and being present wherever you can with that thing. So whether it's work, focus on work. And when you're with your children, focus on your children. And if possible, schedule your day so that you can do both. And if you need to, ask your partner or family for support. For example, something I've done in my own family is ask my in-laws to help my daughter with a particular topic or subject, and they've done Zoom lessons with her over the internet, and she has really enjoyed these. One is an opportunity to connect with her grandparents, but also because she learns something that they're interested in, and she gets quite excited about this. So don't feel like you have to do it on your own. There are other people that can support you with this. In summary, if you don't remember anything else today, these are the things I want you to take away. Make sure that your home office setup is safe and ergonomic, and that you are mobile and take exercise. Create a routine that works for you. You've got to make the most of working from home as well as mitigating those challenges. Build a scaffold to create a positive home-work-life balance. Try some of those time management strategies and get some of that time back for yourself. Prioritize some of the tasks in your life according to the urgent and important analysis. And finally, identify if you're procrastinating and consider how changing this habit may impact you. Before we finish, I wanted you to have an idea of what else is available in this slide deck. So we have here a blank copy of that 5 areas model that we talked about at the beginning of the webinar. This will be really useful for you to start to understand your own vicious cycles and understand how working from home is impacting the way that you feel. If you feel like you need more support, there is support available to you, and I recommend your local IAP service. So wherever you live, there will be a local IAP service available to you where you can receive free psychological support, whether that's online or over the telephone. If you think that you or someone you know is struggling with symptoms of depression or anxiety, you can refer directly to an IAP service by self-referring using this link here and typing in your postcode, and it will bring up your local IAP service. Alternatively, you can refer through your GP if that's easier. If you need urgent help for your mood, if you're having thoughts of suicide or of harming yourself in any way, I really encourage you to seek help and don't struggle alone. You can go directly to your GP if you feel able to. If not, we recommend the Samaritans as a fantastic organisation that can offer you support. You can call them on 116 123. You can also get support from Shout, which is a confidential crisis text messaging service, and you can text them on 85258. If you're not sure what support is available, then use this website here, the NHS Urgent Support Guidance, and they'll be able to help you find the right support that you need. Also included are some useful resources and links available to you so that you can get support and help and advice that will help you during this challenging time. And these resources are fantastic in helping you manage the challenges that you're experiencing. We have come to the end of our session today, and I really hope that you found today's session beneficial and you've got a few ideas that you can put into practice to improve your working from home life. Thank you so much for listening today. I wish you all the best. Take care.